There are stories that feel almost unreal, not because they are dramatic, but because they are deeply human in a way we rarely see anymore. This is one of those stories. It begins in silence, in long, empty school hallways where a man with no spotlight, no audience, and no expectation simply sang because it made him feel alive. He wasn't chasing fame or recognition. He wasn't building a brand or crafting a moment. He was just being himself. And somehow, that honesty became the very thing that captured millions of hearts. What makes this story powerful isn't just what happened when the world finally noticed him, but what he chose to do afterward. Because in a world where success often changes people, this story shows what it looks like when it doesn't. A life built in the background. For more than 2 decades, Richard lived a life that most people would overlook without a second thought. He worked as a janitor in a middle school, quietly going about his daily routine. His days were filled with simple, repetitive tasks, cleaning classrooms, fixing small things, and making sure everything was in order for students and staff. It wasn't glamorous, and it certainly wasn't the kind of life people imagine when they think about talent or dreams. But beneath that routine was something constant: his love for music. He didn't need an audience to validate him. Singing wasn't a performance for him. It was part of who he was. Even when no one was watching, he kept singing. That consistency, that quiet dedication, became the foundation of everything that came later. He wasn't waiting for a moment. He was living his life. Rejection didn't end the dream. Long before anyone knew his name, Richard had already faced rejection. He auditioned for major shows years earlier and didn't make it through. For many people, that would have been the end of the road. It's easy to interpret rejection as a final answer, especially when it comes from big platforms that seem to define success. But Richard didn't let those moments define him. He didn't spiral into bitterness or give up entirely. Instead, he simply returned to his life. He went back to work, back to his routines, and back to singing for himself. What's remarkable is that he didn't carry a sense of unfinished business or desperation. He didn't spend years chasing validation. He just kept going. And in doing so, he proved that sometimes resilience doesn't look loud or dramatic. It looks like quietly continuing when no one is watching. The moment the world finally looked, everything changed when a simple video surfaced online. It wasn't staged or polished. It was just Richard singing in a familiar environment, doing what he had always done. But this time, people saw it. And they didn't just hear his voice, they felt something deeper. There was no pretense, no attempt to impress. It was raw and genuine, and that authenticity is what made people stop scrolling. Suddenly, millions were watching, sharing, and talking about him. Opportunities started to appear, and attention grew rapidly. Yet even in that moment of sudden visibility, Richard didn't rush to transform himself into something else. He didn't try to match the expectations being placed on him. Instead, he stayed grounded in who he had always been. That quiet authenticity became his greatest strength, setting him apart in a world often driven by performance. Stepping into the unknown. When Richard finally stepped onto a major stage, it wasn't just a performance, it was a leap into a completely unfamiliar world. At his age, experiencing such a drastic life shift can be overwhelming. Even something as simple as flying on a plane for the first time symbolized how much his life was changing. He described the feeling as being off balance, like the ground beneath him had suddenly disappeared. But it wasn't a negative feeling, it was unfamiliar, yet full of possibility. That moment captured the essence of his journey. After years of stability and routine, he was suddenly navigating something unpredictable. And instead of resisting it, he embraced it with quiet courage. He didn't pretend to have everything figured out. He simply allowed himself to experience it step by step, without losing the sense of self that had carried him this far. Winning without losing himself. Winning a major competition is often portrayed as a life-altering event, and it certainly was for Richard. Overnight, he became widely recognized, celebrated, and financially secure. But what truly stood out wasn't the victory itself. It was what happened afterward. Just days after achieving something most people only dream about, he returned to his job. Not as a statement, not to prove anything, but because that was his life. He showed up, picked up his tools, and continued working as if nothing extraordinary had happened. To outsiders, it seemed almost unbelievable. Why would someone return to such a routine after gaining so much? But for Richard, there was no conflict. His identity wasn't tied to fame or success. He didn't see his previous life as something to escape from. Instead, he carried his success into it, without letting it redefine him. Love that grounded the journey. Amid all the changes in his life, one of the most meaningful developments was deeply personal. He found love during a time when his life was beginning to shift. This relationship wasn't built on fame or success. It started before any of that existed. She saw him for who he was, not what he could become. She stood by him during moments of uncertainty, offering support and encouragement when he needed it most. Their connection added stability to a life that was becoming increasingly unpredictable. When he eventually dedicated a performance to her, it wasn't about impressing an audience. It was a genuine expression of gratitude and love. Their marriage, which took place just days before his major win, symbolized something powerful. Before the recognition and rewards, he had already found something that mattered more: a partnership rooted in authenticity and care. Discovering a missing piece. One of the most unexpected parts of Richard's journey came through a deeply personal discovery. Encouraged by his partner, he decided to explore a part of his past he had long avoided, finding his biological father. It was a step filled with uncertainty, shaped by years of hesitation and unanswered questions. What he found was both surprising and emotional. His father had never known about his existence. Their eventual connection wasn't built on shared memories, but on the present moment. Along with this discovery came the realization that he had siblings he had never met. In a single year, his life expanded in ways he could never have anticipated. It wasn't just about career success, it was about family, identity, and connection. These moments added depth to his story, reminding everyone that some of a life's most meaningful changes happen away from the spotlight. A life that stayed true. As opportunities grew and his world expanded, one thing remained constant: Richard himself. He began traveling, performing, and exploring possibilities he had never imagined before. Yet despite all these changes, he continued to return to the life that shaped him. He remained connected to his work, his community, and the identity he had built over the years. This consistency is what makes his story so powerful. It challenges the idea that success requires transformation into someone new. Instead, it shows that it's possible to grow without losing your core. Richard didn't shrink his past to fit his present. He carried it with him, honoring every part of his journey. In doing so, he became more than just a success story. He became a reminder that authenticity, when held onto, can be the most extraordinary thing of all.